Good morning. Turn off the music first. There we go. Good morning to everybody out there who follows me on my ABAJAM Chronicles book reading journey. We're here at the Pinery Conservation Park near Grand Bend. And I don't know if you can hear the cicadas in the background. It's a beautiful morning, and just thought I'd take the pleasure and the time to do my reading outside. And I won't be able to post it this week, obviously, because Wi-Fi here is almost non-existent. And going into town and downloading it for everybody, just sitting in some Timmy's for an hour or two, it's not feasible. So I'll post it next week, but it gives you an idea of my surroundings, the camper in the background. Anyways, let's get to it. It's a short chapter this week, by the way, which makes it convenient. Now, this is chapter 11, Boys Must Be Boys. And of course, last week, the last sentence of chapter 10 was, the only question I have on my mind now is, so where's Exeter? Now, if you've ever followed the show called Mork and Mindy, then you know who I was talking about. Anyways, oh, damn it all, I blurted out loudly as I looked at my watch, startling some people standing nearby. In all my distraction, I had completely forgotten about the boys. I bounded down the stairs, taking 2 to 3 at a time. In my haste, I almost knocked over some suit making his way up the stairs. By the time I exited the building, I had picked up my pace to a dead run. Something inside me told me I should not have left the boys alone by themselves for so long a period. I found myself becoming frantic. As it turned out, my concern was not unfounded. Standing by the driver's side of the truck with the door open were 2 young lads. I quickly recognized one of them was Stevie, even with his back turned to me. He must have changed clothes while I was gone. My obedient Jason was sitting in my driver's seat, cradling one of the modules, unwrapped on his lap. Out of my way, boys, I shouted. They both hurriedly stepped aside, and I was double quick, jumping onto the top running boards. Using the handhold, I swung myself into the cab, virtually knocking Jason over onto the passenger seat. The module flew out of his hands and landed on the bunk. Sorry, Stevie, I said to him and his friend, all the while feigning a mock smile. But I'm in a hurry. Say goodbye to your friend and get into the truck. Looking crossways at my son, I snarled, Jason, you get back into the bunk and wrap that damn thing up again. Understand? As I was making my way out of Sudbury, both boys sat in stony silence, faces set forward, avoiding eye contact with each other as well as me. I concentrated on my driving, trying to remain stoic, but mulling over in my mind how I should deal with the boys for their breach of trust and irresponsibility. Once I emerged onto Highway 69 heading south, I finally had the opportunity to express my profound agitation by unleashing on both boys a torrent of abusive epithets. I castigated them, venting my feelings of extreme disappointment. Several times I referred to them as children, intending to humiliate them. To say I was livid would be an understatement. To also say I was excessively cruel and unreasonable wouldn't be. Unfortunately, in my harsh berating of my son and his friend Stevie, I had failed to take into account the all-important fact that they were just 2 boys, 13 and 14. Trouble is, when I become angry, I tend to become unreasonable and somewhat obstinate. Even after the boys, with contrite and peevish expressions written all over their faces, apologized to me for their lack of discretion and obedience, I found I was unmoved. Sorry, my ass, I fumed to myself. The only reason they're both sorry is because they got caught. Normally, it would be a good while before I settled down, but we were getting close to Alban. I didn't want to meet Jackie and Bill with a couple of very distraught boys in tow. To be fair, I was starting to feel guilty, regretting many of the things I had said to the boys. Besides, it was no way to end the trip. An incredibly exciting, if not mind-boggling, at least in my case, adventure of epochal significance, and so I had to relent. Judging by their sullen faces and how especially quiet the boys had become, not their natural temperament, I could only conclude I had overstepped the limits of what should have been a simple reprimand. especially when taking into consideration the very nature and significance of the event in question. No doubt Stevie was scared shitless. It would appear I had lapsed into my old SAD mood swings. I couldn't really blame him. I guess I still didn't have as much self control as I had convinced myself of having, and I had no intention of letting myself blame it on the influence of the modules either. You'd almost think they were having some effect on me, or on the character of Albert. Before we arrived in Albin, I reconciled myself to the boys with profuse apologies, both expressed and received. In no time, the two boys became their normal, boisterous adolescent selves again, and I no longer felt apprehensive about meeting the Vaniers. As it was a weekday, I didn't have to compete for a suitable place to park at the French River Trading Post. I always made it a habit to park at the rear of the lot, well out of the way of the general car parking. I did this everywhere I went. Besides, it was a courtesy to the lot's owner. I always felt the further out of sight I was from four-wheelers, the less inclined they were to complain to management about my menacing rig's presence. While Stevie was phoning home to have all of us picked up, Jason tugged at my arm, looked about for any eavesdroppers, and whispered, "Dad, weren't we supposed to go to a clinic or something before taking Stevie home?" His all too late reminder hit me like a ton of bricks. Shit. I groaned within his hearing, clapped my hands to my head. I had completely forgotten. I looked up at my son. "Don't mention it to Stevie." And I pointed my finger at him for emphasis. "Understand?" He just nodded. Between the distraction of Mindy, who I wasn't about to discuss with my son, and my disproportionately angry blow up about the modules, going to the clinic had utterly slipped my mind. I'd just have to compensate and work something out if the topic came up between me and Stevie's parents. And that's the end of chapter 11. Next week, or the week after, I'm going to be reading chapter 12. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that reading. And we'll be here for approximately another week. I'm looking forward to my friend Dave Taylor and his wife Fiona dropping by and visiting us next weekend, Friday and Saturday. Anyways, it's a glorious day today. We're about to head off to church. And then the Grand Band Flea Market, which is quite spectacular. Once again, you all have a great week. I'm back to getting ready for church.